Hello, my name is Kevin Tudor, and I'm one of the three hosts of Almost Major, a film podcast dissecting many major indie studios and the films they release. Every week, myself, Charlie Nash, and Bryden Doyle discuss overlooked, forgotten, or bona fide classic indie films via studio-specific miniseries. We've previously covered numerous films from Artisan Entertainment, Lionsgate Films, and New Line Cinema. Titles including The Blair Witch Project, American Psycho, Dogville, But I'm a Cheerleader, Saw, Requiem for a Dream, and Ringmaster, you know, the Jerry Springer film. Anyways, we have a fun time every week and we hope you will join us. Subscribe to Almost Major wherever you get your podcasts. Now proudly a part of the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.
Hello, this is Aaron West. I am the author of the A24 New Wave. In this book, I look at A24's output, and I make the argument that we are in a new wave movement right now. A24 plays a major role. This book has a supplemental podcast where each episode is a brief conversation about an A24-related topic, whether an actor, director, or even a genre. As I continue research for the book and conduct interviews, I expect to record podcast episodes with people involved with the company. You can find the podcast at cinejourneys.com or wherever you find podcasts, and we are proud to be members of the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.
Welcome to the Culture Cast. I'm Chris Stachiw, and this is the final Culture Cast of Jess Byard June, which means I am joined by Jess Byard herself.
Hello.
Hi.
This is second week in a row, which is a record for me. Not for you. You do this all the time, but a record for me.
I was about to say, let's not go into the records that I've done, because this is ridiculous. I mean, yeah, it's a fucking record.
Yourself.
Yeah, I do this to myself. I don't remember the last time I haven't had to edit a podcast during a weekday, so. Or during a week.
Do one a day.
Well, no, but I mean, I have to at least edit 1 to 3 a week, so.
Well, that's fair.
It's fine. It's fine. This is okay. This is okay, as the house is burning down around me. So on this episode of the Culture Cast, we are going to be talking about 2015's The Final Girls.
Camp Bloodbath is the granddaddy of all campsite slasher films. Max's mom plays Nancy, this shy girl next door.
Nice legs. What time they open?
It's cool you get to remember your mom this way.
At least I get to see her on the anniversary of her death, even if she is being chased by a psycho.
Guys, somebody's coming.
Hey, do you guys know the way to Camp Bluefinch?
Tina! So, we're in the movie.
Oh, hi. What's your name?
Best summer ever!
Anyone want to help me pick some strawberries?
Nope, but I'll give you a hand with those melons. Talking about her boobs.
The writing is so bad.
What is that noise?
It's Billy. He's coming. Everyone who has sex in this movie dies. It's awesome.
No sex.
Run! Wait. Selfie time.
Dude! How do we get out of here?
Movies like this end when the final girl kills the bad guy and the credits roll.
That's Paula. That's the final girl. We just have to stay with her till the end of the movie.
Oops.
I want to know where they keep the hardware. I want chainsaws and big-ass knives, and I want them now.
Guys, what's happening? Why am I colorblind? Am I having a stroke?
Or a flashback.
wonder if all this blood is just corn syrup, you know? Like these characters are walking around with just corn syrup in their veins. Oh, no. Oh, God, that's blood.
I know in the movie you're supposed to die, but that doesn't mean you have to, right?
What do we do now? We fight.
So, it is directed by Todd Strauss Schulson. It is written by M.A. Fortin and Joshua John Miller. That name may sound familiar to you because that is Jason Miller's father's... Oh, wait, no. That is Jason Miller's son, who is the half-brother of Jason Patric. Jason Miller played Father Karras in The Exorcist, so a little bit of horror pedigree here with the film. It stars Taissa Farmiga, Malin Akerman, Alexander Ludwig, Nina Dobrev, Alia Swakat. I mean, it's got a shitload of people. I'm not going to name everybody. Holy cow.
Right.
And the film is essentially Last Action Hero meets Friday the 13th. Taissa Farmiga's character and her friends are sucked into her mom's film, Camp Bloodbath. So, before we talk about the film, Jess, I gave you carte blanche essentially this month to pick out the films that we were watching, except for Cheerleader Camp. I am not going to accredit that one to you.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. Why did you pick The Final Girls?
Well, first of all, one step back here. I also wanted to point out that Jason Miller's mom is also Susan Bernard, who is in Faster Pussycat Kill Kill. So he's got like a family of just... And he was Homer. He himself was Homer in Near Dark, which is... It's just a really interesting, famous family. But going back to your question, why did I pick The Final Girls? This movie, you said it came out in 2015, right? That's what I'm...
Sure did.
Right, okay. So 2015, that was, in the last few years has sort of been kind of like a heyday for indie horror. It's kind of waning at the moment, I think, but it was pretty high in like between 2013 and 2015, I'd say.
Not if Midsummer, Hereditary, The Vivitch, and other films have anything to say about it.
You won't see the engineer that slams the Nissan Rogue's door 13,920 times. Or the corrosive chamber that simulates 15 years of life in 5 months. Or the Rogue heat-baked for over 300 combined hours. What you will see is a vehicle that can take punch after punch and keep rolling. Nissan, #1 in new vehicle quality among mainstream brands by J.D. Power. We put it through the worst, so you get its best. For J.D. Power 2025 U.S. Initial Quality Study Award information, visit jdpower.com/awards. Awards based on 2025 model year. Newer models may be shown.
Have you ever wanted to dive deeper into the horror movies you love? Beyond the Blood is a horror podcast for fans who want more than just surface-level screams. We do deep dives into the movies that shaped us, digging into director commentaries, behind-the-scenes stories, deleted scenes, and the special features that most people skip. Each episode is a love letter to the genre. We break down how these films were made, the creative risks that paid off or didn't, and the lasting impact they've had on the genre as a whole. From 70s slashers to modern nightmares, we celebrate the craft, chaos, and characters that keep us coming back. If you're the kind of fan who rewatches movies with the commentary on, or you simply grew up in the video store horror aisle, the Beyond the Blood podcast was made for you. New episodes every single week. Subscribe, and let's dig deep. Welcome to the Beyond the Blood podcast.
Well,
but that's highbrow. That's highbrow, okay? That's artistic horror. Mm-hmm. You just don't get it, okay?
It's elevated.
Yeah, it's elevated horror. I swear to God, the next fucking time I hear that shit, I'm gonna lose my goddamn... The horror genre fans as a fucking collective should lose their minds. Someone says it's elevated horror. Because, first off, someone who's saying that doesn't like the genre to begin with.
Right.
I would actually stake my claim as a movie critic, a fan of cinema, and horror being my favorite genre, that if you say elevated horror, you are not a fan of the genre and you are watching it because it is the newest film out at the box office that Friday.
Yeah, it does just feel like it's a scapegoat for people who are like, oh, I don't want to feel like I'm into the... And it also feels like a scapegoat for genre fans who find those movies that they deem not horror. And then you have a whole other different conversation. But that's a whole other different podcast.
It smacks of condescension because it's like, what? It's not a horror movie? Like, what? A horror movie can't be highbrow and entertaining?
Right, exactly. Which is obviously not true because, I mean, that you, like I said, you just look at any horror movie, you know, like any gamut of horror movies throughout the past 50 years, and you're going to find a pretty even mix of what people would consider elevated or highbrow and then what people would consider, you know, lowbrow. It's really just, it's a matter of taste within the genre. You like certain stuff, you don't like certain stuff, and that's fine. But the reason I picked Final Girls is because I like slasher movies. That is a subgenre of horror that I do enjoy, even though a majority of them, you know, they're knockoffs for the most part, and they're not wholly rich in character and story. But for me, they're fun. I enjoy them. They make me feel all nostalgic for, you know, when I was in high school and discovering horror movies and like really getting into the different subgenres. And when The Final Girls came out, I was like, okay, this seems interesting. It's, you know, a meta take on slasher movies, which, okay, we've seen that in Scream and various other movies. This is supposed to be sort of a comedy. And I thought that it completely nailed it, and it completely did something really original while also being like extremely, like, you know, close to source material and reference material. Like it fell into that balance really well, and it's emotional. Like I care about every one of those characters in that movie for the most part, and the stuff between Max and her mom Nancy is just so just heartening, and those two actresses have great chemistry together, and it makes you care. And that's something that I don't think, you know, that's notorious for slasher movies to not do, right? Like,
oh yeah,
that's you usually are just watching a bunch of, you know, meatbags walk around doing stupid stuff until they die in creative ways, and that's fun, you know. But this is a movie. This is a story. This isn't a really, you know, 3-dimensional, character-driven, emotional movie about grief and about, you know, friendship and evolution in yourself. And I love it. I think that it's a fantastic movie. I don't think that it got enough love when it came out, and I think that these writers and director really, really made a great story, even if it wasn't the original, you know, super close to the original draft. They still are very proud of what they did, and I think that they should be.
Well, I'm going to agree with you 100%. I mean, this is... I saw this... I have to have seen this movie, like... I had to have seen it in, like, 2016. Like, I remember seeing it when it was on VOD, when it first came out. And I'm assuming you did as well. I mean, it was...
Yeah.
Like you said, it essentially came out with no fanfare, right? It just kind of came out, was on VOD...
Like, it got love in the community, but I think that if it, like, had actually gotten a release of some kind, it could have been maybe, like, a sleeper hit. Which, I mean, they made it for no money, and so they would have definitely made money back, I think, had they done maybe a wider release. And I think that it maybe could have, you know, I'm optimistic that it might have, you know, opened up a new channel of horror movies coming out in the more wide release theaters, but that didn't happen, and that's fine because things are shifting in how we consume media and where we see it first, and that's just how this industry goes. But it is a shame that, because I do think that this is a movie for, like, for this podcast, I watched the movie with the writer's commentary. I have the Blu-ray, so I was like, okay, I'm gonna pop this on and kind of just listen to this, and they have a commentary with the actors, a commentary with the writers. I only listen to the writers, so I can't really speak for the actors' commentary. But the writers' commentary was really interesting and insightful. The writers are really Jason Miller and help me out.
May Fortin.
Yes, are both really nice, charismatic guys who really, they're super genuine in this movie and just in general, it seems. And listening to them talk about, their inspirations of, with the script where it was, I believe, Fortin's dad, passed away not long before he started writing this movie, and this movie was sort of his
You won't see the engineer that slams the Nissan Rogue's door 13,920 times, or the corrosive chamber that simulates 15 years of life in 5 months, or the Rogue heat-baked for over 300 combined hours. What you will see is a vehicle that can take punch after punch and keep rolling. Nissan, #1 in new vehicle quality among mainstream brands by J.D. Power. We put it through the worst, so you get its best. For J.D. Power 2025 U.S. Initial Quality Study Award information, visit jdpower.com/awards. Awards based on 2025 model year. Newer models may be shown.
Hey, this is Jason Kleberg from the Force 5 podcast, a show that forces a guest to come up with a movie-themed top 5 list topic, and then we reveal our picks on air. Top 5 heist films, top 5 tearjerkers, top 5 movie dogs. Every show you'll be asking yourself, what would be on my list? Guests include directors, screenwriters, actors, podcasters, musicians, authors, and even a professional wrestler. Subscribe to the Force 5 podcast, and you won't just be a listener, you'll be a list nerd. The Force 5 podcast, available wherever you're listening now.
Answer to grief, and I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I believe it's Fortin's father, because Jason Miller's dad died quite a few years ago, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that's what I thought. Yeah. So I mean, listening to Fortin talk about that is just it's great to see that people deal with grief and they tell stories, and it's really great to see that story in a horror story. This is this is a horror movie. This is a slasher movie that it still falls in that genre.
Oh yeah, and there's a lot that is okay. Look, like you said, Scream has kind of become the beacon of what we talk about when we talk about satirical horror films and films that kind of are meta and poke fun at themselves, but also at the same time tell an interesting story. I mean, it's not really parody, because sometimes when parody exists, it feels like it's kind of devoid of a story and it's just existing to poke fun. Something like, I'll give Scary Movie 1. Scary Movie 1, I would say, is parody, satire, but then past Scary Movie 1, it becomes more parody.
Yeah, it's just basically just a bunch of skits.
Just sight gags.
Fun of the movie, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and so with something like this, it's satirical and not a parody, but it also, like you said, happens to also work on a level as a actual slasher film. I mean, there's, like you said, there's characters you care about. There's all the things that I appreciate about horror are in this movie. Mm-hmm. However, it also is done in a way that feels new and exciting and interesting, because it is that mechanic of, they go into the movie. So it does have that little last action hero vibe to it, but there's something about this movie that's so charming, and I think it really does come back to the writing and the actors. Mm-hmm. I like Taissa Farmiga a lot. I know you do as well.
Yes,
and
I like her.
She's great in this movie. Like you said, she's great with Malin Akerman. The set design is great. The fact that they're able to really evoke the slasher film in a way that doesn't feel like they're overdoing it, and they're paying homage, and they're giving a little nod here and there to certain things, like the fact that the killer in the film, he was essentially harassed by the other kind of kids.
Counselors, yeah.
Yeah, and so, and it has kind of that one syllable name, like Jason, Billy, Freddy.
Yeah.
It's that, yeah. So it's kind of got all the trappings of a slasher film, and it does a really good job of being its own film. That's the thing about these kinds of movies. It has to be its own film before it can be a satire.
Agreed.
Right? And it does a good job being its own film.
Yeah, it's yes, here are the tropes, here's what you expect in a slasher movie. And I guess we should kind of explain maybe a little what this movie is about. if you haven't
Max
seen
and her
Final
friends
Girls.
go into a movie.
Right. If you haven't seen it, it does start with Max and her mom. Unfortunately, get into a horrific car accident. Her mom passes away. Well, her mom was the Scream Queen star of Camp Bloodbath, an 80s slasher movie in this universe. And yeah, they go to see a retrospective screening with a bunch of horror nerds, and a fire breaks out, and they go into the movie, and then she gets to see her mom again, and there we go. And it plays with all of those tropes. You get your mean girls, you get your the bro, played expertly by Adam
Devine, Omaha, Nebraska's own Adam Devine.
There you go. Who's just great in that, meatheady, douchey role. And they play them up great, and especially later in the movie when they sort of sit down the remaining characters and explain to them that they're characters in the movie. It's a really hilarious, like, laughing out loud to myself movie mixed with some really crushingly sad moments. I mean, we start the movie with a death with Max's mom, and it's really sad. And I mean, that song, Betty Davis Eyes,
yep.
They play with that, and then, in her final scene, spoilers, in her final scene, they play it again, and it hits really well. It hits really hard. And when I was listening to the commentary, they actually talked about how they wanted it to be Madonna's Like a Prayer. And they wrote her like this big long letter about how much they loved her and wanted to use that song, and for whatever reason she never licenses that song now or whatever. But she was going to let them use any other song for really cheap, but then they're like, no, they wanted it to be Like a Prayer, and if it couldn't be Like a Prayer...
It's because Madonna is too self-serious, that's why.
Yeah, I guess so.
It's probably what it is.
Yeah, probably. But, so the director was actually the one who pushed for Betty Davis Eyes, and the writers fought him on it, but he went with it, and I think it was a fantastic choice. Like, it's an obscure song enough that it doesn't have any like pre-meaning to it or context to it for most people. And I think that really helps it. It just really kind of sticks in the movie. Like, yeah, that's the song that should be there.
Yeah,
for me anyway.
Well, no, I agree. And the soundtrack in the film is great. We talked about this off podcast a couple times, how kind of I wish that there was a sequel to the film, but at the same time, the fact that the sequel is named Camp Bloodbath 2, Cruel Summer, a play on the Bananarama song of the same name, which is an amazing song. Yes, one of the best 80s songs ever written.
Mm-hmm.
But the soundtrack is great. The use of color in the film, and
it's rich. It's super rich.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff in the film that, like, it does a good job of showing you that it's not just like Last Action Hero, where, like, in Last Action Hero, they can just walk around and do whatever they want. In this, they're trapped within the physical limitations of the film. So at one point, the characters are running, ostensibly in a circle, but they're essentially running around the scene. And they're running in and out of shot, and, oh, God, what is it? Angela Trimber's character is going, hey, you guys are back. Like, oh my God, just over and over again. But I like the constraints of the film more than in Last Action Hero, because in something like Last Action Hero, they didn't really define the rules.
Yeah, it's kind of willy-nilly. It's like, okay, so you can interact with everything, but it's strange. But in this movie...
And then they do the whole real world thing in Last Action Hero, which absolutely fucking sucks.
Yeah.
It is the worst part of the movie. They should have kept the entire goddamn film in the film. And in this film, they do that.
Yes, I agree. That's great. That really... they keep you in the film, but it also, while they're still interacting with the movie and they're still subject to the movie's rules, they're not exempt from the movie's rules. Like, they are a part of it. And you can die in this world.
So we think.
Right. Throughout the movie, those are big stakes until, at the end, and it's revealed that they did come back once they got out of the movie, or were they out of the movie, Obviously
again,
not. Yeah.
Obviously not, right. And again, that's the fun thing about this movie is that the rules, I feel like I understand the rules, except for the ending, which I think the ending works for me in one hand because it's like that's a pitch perfect way to end a film that's like a satire, like love letter to slasher film fans.
Right, of course there would be a sequel. Yeah.
But at the same time, like, it feels a little like unnecessary.
It doesn't work quite like what we were saying with the rules. It kind of makes everything feel a little bit like, wait, hold on.
It feels a little cheap.
These people were dead. Like maybe you can argue that Duncan was not. I believe that was his name.
Oh, but, Thomas Middleditch?
Yeah. But the two, Gertie and Vicky were definitely dead. I mean, their deaths were sad. Like, they're really sad when
and who's to say that Malin Akerman's character isn't alive either?
Right, exactly.
Because clearly Billy can survive, but I mean, that's slasher films. I mean, that's just the slasher thing for you.
Would you have preferred that they, like, just go back out of the movie?
I mean, if it had been me, I would have just done that. Because I don't look, I mean, the way they told the story is almost so perfect that the ending just, what I would have done is probably had them, like, I don't know, like, wake up in the movie theater in the alley behind and, like, them have injuries, all of them, but them all still alive. Like, yeah, I don't know, because you could kill the
injuries
characters
similar to what their injuries were in the movie.
Yeah, but like the characters are still alive. But at the same time, like then that also removes the stakes. I think,
kind of, because you could just you could end it with a wink and a nod to a sequel, like where it's like, oh, like have
Nightmare.
a little coda where it's like 2 weeks later or whatever, and Duncan's like, oh, they're going to be doing, since the movie theater burned down or whatever, they're going to have a fundraiser to raise money. What are they doing? Oh, they're going to show Camp Bloodbath 2, welcome to Camp Bloodbath 2 or whatever, and kind of like set it up that way. I think that could have worked, but I don't mind the way they did it. I think it was fine. I think it was kind of if we're going to go with, yeah, this movie was a slasher movie, so we have to have all the tropes, and the tropes include having a, improbable transition to or segue into a sequel. There's always like, okay, that doesn't make a lot of sense, but I guess we'll go with it.
Right. Well, and again, also, the way the film ends is also technically the beginning of the next film, which is also fun. I mean, that's a fun way to end the film and yet start the next film.
Well, and it ends in a hospital, so do you think, like, it could be like they could have done like an homage more to like Halloween too? Right. Well, that's kind of, that's kind of what I thought they were going for, was setting the beginning in a hospital. But I also like how Max just like takes it to Billy right at the end of the film. She goes after him, which again, it's fun, and it kind of breaks kind of what is expectations for horror slasher film sequels with the character from the first film, because normally they just are murdered essentially in the first 5 minutes of the movie. Right, exactly. They're just disposed of quickly, like, oh, here's the character you remember by. But I think it also kind of like sets it up to where you don't have to have a sequel either, because you can just say, oh, well, that happened. Like, he busted through and we just assume that she attacked him and then whatever. Okay, fine. Yeah. But outside of the ending, like, there's a lot of fun stuff. Like, there's a credit roll. There's the thing where it's like, quick, back into the flashback. There's a point where they get Max. Max tells her mom, Nancy in the film, her mom in real life, to, like, start the flashback again as Billy's about to attack them, which takes them out of the scene into the flashback. So they have, like, a second to get away. I thought that was really interesting and fun. Again, it's playing with what your notions are about how the subgenre works, and I think that's really fun. Yeah. But again, it makes sense in the scope of the film. And it is interesting that like neither of these. Well, the director, what else is that?
You won't see the engineer that slams the Nissan Rogue's door 13,920 times. Or the corrosive chamber that simulates 15 years of life in 5 months. Or the Rogue heat-baked for over 300 combined hours. What you will see is a vehicle that can take punch after punch and keep rolling. Nissan, #1 in new vehicle quality among mainstream brands by J.D. Power. We put it through the worst, so you get its best. For JD Power 2025 U.S. Initial Quality Study Award information, visit jdpower.com/awards. Awards based on 2025 model year. Newer models may be shown.
Director done.
Isn't It Romantic?
No, I haven't seen that.
That was the most recent film that he's done. That's what Rebel Wilson, I think.
Oh, okay. So, but he's not a horror movie.
No, but
filmmaker.
Isn't It Romantic is a film that I haven't seen it, but it's that film with Rebel Wilson where she gets trapped in a romantic comedy.
Right. So he's got a very specific niche.
Hi, I'm Todd Strauss-Schulson, and I am casting myself into a very, very, very small subsection of films.
Yeah, like, okay, so it would be like you find yourself in a horror movie, you find yourself in a romantic comedy, you find yourself in a post-apocalyptic movie.
Yeah,
that's probably the next one.
I don't know why he's going that direction, but I've heard that movie was pretty good.
I heard from, people that I would expect who would like it. Like, that's fine, and I'm sure it is good for, that kind of movie, but it's just not. That's just one of those things where I don't like Rebel
Wilson, so...
Well, that's fair. I'm not a fan either. But I think it's just one of those things where it's like, no, that's just a whole genre of movie that's just, I'm not all that into it. I'm good. I don't need to be. I have a lot of other movies I'll never have time to see, so...
Well, and that's the thing that's fun about this movie, is you don't necessarily have to be a fan of the genre to appreciate this movie.
No, not at all. Like, this movie would be... This movie you can show to pretty much anybody, and I think that anybody could at least appreciate that it's, a funny movie or, an emotional movie, whatever. I think everybody can find good in it, something in it to like. And I think it would be a good, like, kind of starter horror movie to show somebody, because that's kind of like... When I was first getting into the genre, I enjoyed watching movies that had, like, a lot of references to, like, classic horror movies and other things, because then I enjoyed, like, okay, this is a reference to this is a reference to this, these are the movies I need to see. So, kind of, I think this fits right in there, where you would be showing this to a new potential fan and going, here you go, this is a really, exceptional way to do a slasher movie, and then these are all the movies that it's kind of referencing and that, it's having homages to, and here, you should check these out. And that's, for me anyway, that's how it worked.
Well, and the other thing about this movie is, similarly to Scream, like we said before, if it can stand on its own as not only satire but also a good film, that is the kind of testament of quality for something like this. And the horror genre feels like such an easier genre to do something like this in, because there is so much stuff in the horror genre that is so iconic,
right,
and so standout and so memorable for so many people. I think my biggest problem with this film, I mean, as much as I'm not a huge fan of the ending, my biggest problem with this film is that it's rated PG-13. It really does. It almost feels like a cop-out.
Right, and they talk about that a lot in the commentary, Miller.
Because I know it was a studio thing.
Yeah,
it was
Miller
a studio
and Fordu
mandate.
So there were a lot of studio things. So initially, like, New Line was going to do it, but they wanted to get rid of, like, all the emotional stuff and just kind of make it more of like a comedy parody and whatever, and kind of gut the actual heart out of it. So they were like, no, that's not what we want to do. But yeah, the initial drafts of the script were way darker. They wanted it to be much more like a horror movie, like not so fun and poking fun at itself, but like them actually be in a slasher movie where people are like, scared and dying, not just like, played for laughs. But they also had a draft where the characters, as they were in the movie for so long, their bodies were starting to morph into like stereotypical slasher characters, slasher movie fodder, basically. And so they had like a couple female characters who were, a little, not as attractive or whatever. And so like as the movie went on, they would start getting those qualities, and like one would become like a mean girl, and one would become, what would be the final girl and whatever. So that's kind of an interesting concept, but all of the original drafts, I guess, were just much darker and much more, gory and more, I guess the stakes would be a lot higher, because a lot of the drafts ended with like Max getting out and all her friends were still dead, and all this stuff still happened, and now she's even more alone, and that was just ending in like sad, like just more sadness on top of the grief already. And I would like a more R-rated version, sure, in the like gore factor and all those aspects, but I like that she still gets those nice moments with her mom in those sequences, because I think that's what makes the movie. And so I'm glad that stuff is in there, as opposed to making it a lot more gritty and gruff towards the characters.
Yeah, I'm not sure I miss like the graphicness. I think just the dialogue, I think, you know what I mean? It lacks like
lacks like a fuck here and there.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, yeah, I agree. It should have a much more like colorful
adult blue, however you want to characterize it.
I mean, a slasher movie script. I mean, yeah, they're not, super, super raunchy, but, you get a few fucks here and there, and you get some... This movie is pretty devoid of, like, adult language, I guess.
It's a PG-13 movie, it is... And there are times where it feels like one, and it, again, also, when you have a slasher film, you expect there to be some interesting kills. And while this movie doesn't really need them, it could have used one or two just to further reinforce that it is, a slasher film. Because ultimately, it is trying to be a slasher film on its own. Right. And without those, it feels a little... It feels like it needs some of that.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, I mean, there's not a lot of blood either. Yeah, like you said, like there's just, and not like, I don't mean like super graphic blood, but there's really like when Duncan gets hit with the machete, it just sticks in him. Like that's it. Like you don't see anything else, and it looks kind of goofy. And I think that some of that like makes it, like you said, a little bit more vanilla. It doesn't push the envelope as much as it could. And I think that is a missed opportunity.
All they needed to do is add in like a little line about how like, oh, we must not be able to be killed the same way other characters in the film can because we're from the real world and we're not characters. Something like that, right? I mean, something to that effect, just to acknowledge it, but obviously they didn't. So, I think that's just kind of, again, it's just with a slasher film homage, blood and nudity are missing, and it's like,
yeah,
it's unfortunate,
but
again, like,
true.
But so much of it is made up for by how great the writing is and how heartfelt it is. Yeah, I think it kind of just, unless you're really like, oh, fucking, I want that. Like, I want some nudity. I want some tits and ass, which is like, I mean, I have had enough of it this month. With fucking cheerleader camp alone was more than enough. But the story is what carries this film, and the characters are what carry this film. And,
and that's what makes a good movie, not just like a good slasher movie. I mean, slasher movies have gratuitous nudity and violence because they don't have story. Like that's what people come to see or what they came to see for the most part, or at least that's what filmmakers thought. I mean, Friday the 13th made a bunch of money, so then a whole bunch of people made a whole bunch of knockoffs saying, hey, must be what people like. But that lasted for that decade, and then it went away in a pretty big way. It came back a little bit in the 90s in a more polished, like way with I Know What You Did Last Summer, in that weird 2000s-y gloss.
And Scream.
And Scream. Scream's a little bit different. I mean, Scream's a good movie.
Scream is an amazing movie.
And
but we'll never do a podcast on Scream because what the fuck can we say about it that hasn't already been said?
Exactly. But, I mean, and then slasher movies kind of went away again after that little blip again. And that's because you can't it's hard to do something original or different with a slasher movie because it was based on such a simple formula. Like, that was literally what it was, is all these directors after Shaughnessy Cunningham and everybody, like, they just started doing the exact same thing. So you get the exact same movie with a bunch of different killers. Some of them are more creative than others, and you get different things out of them, but nothing really came out of that until this movie came out. And then I was like, okay, that's how you do an interesting slasher movie again. And yeah, you can argue that there's movies been like Hatchet and others that have come out over the years sprinkled throughout, but I don't think
I would contend
hit.
Hatchet is just a straight up slasher movie.
It is, but I mean,
and it has the casting homage thing where it's like, we're gonna have Tony Todd or Kane Hodder is gonna play Victor Crowley, but like, those movies are just bucket of blood movies, and that's fine. I mean, they have their place in slasher film, but you know, as much as I like Adam Green, his Victor Crowley movies are not, like Victor Crowley and Hatchet, they're not my favorite movies that he's made.
I would agree. I think that they're just new, they're just well done slasher movies set now with references for fans. But this was like a story that was set inside of a slasher movie as a vehicle. Like, the slasher trope itself was the vehicle for the story and the characters. And that, I think, is just like a really interesting way, like, that these two writers collaborated. And that's, I think, it's an excellent example of a collaborative writing endeavor. I mean, you can have a lot of movies suffer with, you know, once you get like 2, 3, 4 writers on it, you're really starting to get in trouble because you start to have all these different voices that aren't blending. But these two guys really managed to bring out, I think, the best in each other's writing and like play on each other's strengths. And having a director that wasn't, you know, specifically a genre director, I think helped because he wanted to go with that brighter color palette and that, you know, more rich overall contrasty vibe rather than a dingy, dark, gross looking old camp. Like, it looks like a pleasant place, and that's what these camps looked like then, you know, like to kids going to them. And so it's nice. It really captures that actual feeling. Like, you feel like you're in that place.
So let me ask you something before we give our kind of ratings for...
You won't see the engineer that slams the Nissan Rogue's door 13,920 times. Or the corrosive chamber that simulates 15 years of life in 5 months. Or the Rogue heat-baked for over 300 combined hours. What you will see is a vehicle that can take punch after punch and keep rolling. Nissan, #1 in new vehicle quality among mainstream brands by J.D. Power. We put it through the worst, so you get its best. For J.D. Power 2025 U.S. Initial Quality Study Award information, visit jdpower.com/awards. Awards based on 2025 model year. Newer models may be shown.
Hello and welcome to Tumbleweeds and TV Cowboys. My name is Hunter. In this podcast, I'll be joined by a different guest each week to discuss a classic Western movie or TV show. I've been a fan of classic Westerns for as long as I can remember, and in recent years, they've become very nostalgic for me. I love the aesthetic, the tropes, and I love seeing different filmmakers' takes on them. At their best, they're incredibly entertaining, rewatchable, and some of my all-time favorite movies are Westerns. We'll mostly focus on Western movies made in Hollywood, but we'll also be covering spaghetti Westerns, and one thing I'm very excited to get into are Western TV shows. I've got some amazing guests coming on the show, film professors, historians, and podcasters. And Tumbleweeds and TV Cowboys is part of the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network, and many guests on the show will be from other shows on the network. Thanks for listening.
Or the Final Girls, because this kind of comes up in conversation, and I haven't brought it up yet for a reason. I really like The Final Girls a lot, and I would put it up on a pedestal of films worth seeing, and it didn't get the wide release that the film I'm about to mention did because the people behind it weren't as high profile. But this, The Final Girls, is the best version of this kind of slasher film homage that we've gotten compared to a film like The Cabin in the Woods, which I absolutely cannot stand. How do you feel about The Cabin in the Woods?
I enjoyed The Cabin in the Woods the first couple times I saw it, but honestly, I don't really ever need to see it again. It's too proud of its like self-referential. It is. It's too Joss Whedon-y. That's really what it is. That's
Joss Whedon's a fucking asshole. I hate Joss Whedon for a lot of reasons, but like the fact that Cabin in the Woods got wide release because it was a Joss Whedon movie, and The Final Girls didn't because it wasn't for whatever reason.
It was a nobody movie, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that The Final Girls is a far superior movie to Cabin in the Woods, and they do both fall into the horror satire tropey movies. And you know, I did enjoy Cabin in the Woods the first couple times I saw it. I do think that it has like a couple things in it that work. But overall, I just don't think that Joss Whedon, regardless of what we know about like things now, in general, whether we knew those things or not, I don't think that his voice has aged very well. That might be blasphemous to many, but I just don't think that like his stuff holds up very well, and I think that it just kind of gets on everybody, or at least it gets on my nerves like after a while, where it's just that I do enjoy the back and forth paced, you know, jabby dialogue, but Joss Whedon's just feels like the same thing every time, and Cabin in the Woods I don't think has the same rewatchability for me that Final Girls does, is because it's too on the nose tropey, and I don't care about the characters as much as I care about the characters in Final Girls. I think that these characters are much more human. They're just more real. The stakes are clearer, like the whole than what is going on in Cabin in the Woods. So yeah, I think that had Cabin in the Woods been directed by a nobody director, that it probably would definitely have a cult following on the indie scene, but I don't think it would have gotten a theatrical release, much like Final Girls.
Well, I mean, let's be honest here. Look, The Final Girls is kind of like that, you know, oh, have you seen The Final Girls? Like, it's kind of like it's not like a really well-known horror comedy. Like, it's really not. Which is kind of fun in a way that there's like, oh, fucking Cabin in the Woods, okay, I bet you went and saw that in theaters, like, okay, but have you seen The Final Girls?
Right.
And like, it's kind of fun to introduce people to The Final Girls because it is such a cool and fun and good movie. And like you said, I mean, the voice that Joss Whedon has used has aged so poorly.
Because so many people have attempted it since then, and it just has a certain air about it now that's just aggravating, and that for me, I don't think it doesn't work for me, because in hindsight, watching stuff that he's done again, I'm just like, I'm just annoyed with this. And you know, people who love it, and that's fine. You do that, but I don't.
Yeah, and look, again, I think if you show someone The Final Girls over The Cabin in the Woods, they would walk away thinking The Final Girls is a better film anyways.
Yes, I
think it's a more impactful film. It's a more well-written. It's a funnier film. It's a smarter film.
It is.
And that's the thing about a film like The Cabin in the Woods, or, you know, I mean, what is it? Tucker and Dale versus Evil. Though that's more fun than smart, I would say. Tucker.
I enjoy Tucker and Dale, and that's just fun. Like, more. I think I associate Tucker and Dale kind of with Shaun of the Dead. Like, and I mean, obviously, actors aside, it just kind of is that more like fun feeling, where it really is. It loves the genre too, and it's just a different kind of love. Like with Final Girls, like I said, this is how this writer chose to write about his grief, and so that this is just the story that we get out of that. And so that's what I think makes Final Girls different from all of these movies. That it's a satire, it's comedy, and it is truly hilarious. Like, there are some really hilarious scenes throughout this movie. I mean, everything with Tina, the actress name escapes me, but Tina, who plays the, you know, tropey slutty girl who can't help herself, but, you know, try to sleep with every dude and strip teasing. There's her major moment in the third act is just, it's hilarious and it's sad and it's perfect. And that actress really, really does it amazingly well. I guess during that production or during that filming of that scene where she starts to dance and she just kind of goes crazy. I guess it was so hot that day that they were shooting, and she just got so into it and was going so crazy that she actually passed out while she was doing that. So, I mean, these people were giving it all, and you can feel that, like that these people really enjoyed their time working on this movie. This is a great example of like feeling like an actual like cohesive production, and that, like, you know, everyone that worked on this movie really believed in this movie, and that comes through, and that's always really nice to see.
Well, and like you said, I mean, it is a well written, well made film, and I would put it up against any of the other, you know, horror genre kind of satires that we've seen in the last 3 decades at this point now. So
right, and hey, it made me cry like twice.
I mean, yeah, it's got a lot of emotional like stuff in the film, which I appreciate. It takes the film seriously, like it takes itself seriously, but not too seriously.
It's funny when it needs to be, and it's serious when it needs to be, and it knows exactly when it needs to be those things.
So what would you give the film out of 5?
I'm going to say a 4.5 out of 5.
Yeah, I would give it a 4.5 as well. I mean, there's just a couple small things just small things.
Yeah, like I do agree about the ending that I do. Like, I think that it works definitely for what it is, but I do think it could have been a little smoother. They could have stuck that landing a little better. I think that some of the CG is really kind of goofy, but I will chalk that up to budget. I mean, they really didn't have a lot of money making this, and I'm glad that they spent more money on production design and location and everything over, you know, super spectacular effects. So that's all right. But I think that they could have done some more practical effects. I would have liked to seen more of that in a slasher. But then again, PG-13 movie. So
yeah, exactly, and that's why I give it a 4.5. There are some things, just small things, but again, small things that are kind of a big deal.
So would this be the best movie that you've watched all month?
Yeah, but I mean, that shouldn't be surprising.
Right. I mean, and it is, like, by all means, by filmmaking standards, by storytelling standards, it is on paper definitely the best movie you've done all month. And it is just probably the best movie you've done all month. Cheerleader Camp is rough.
Yeah, this movie is a lot better. Yeah, Cheerleader Camp's real bad.
And you did The Burning, that's right.
Yeah, it was okay.
The Burning is fun. I enjoy it. It's one of my favorites, but I did see it pretty early on in my questing for slasher movies, so I might be painted with some nostalgia-covered glasses.
And then we talked Friday the 13th, and that was pretty good.
Right. That was the strange one, yes.
Yeah. And Cheerleader Camp was bad, so that's 4, and this is the best one. So.
Well, hey, yeah. That's more winners than losers, I think.
Exactly. That's about three winners, 1 loser. So not a bad number to have walking away from the month. So speaking of that, let's take a break and we'll talk about the next Culture Cast.
Fame. Glamour. Perfection. What if you could find it all at the tip of a needle? Here at the Lucas Clinic, we strive to bring you closer to celebrity than ever before. With samples drawn directly from the source, you can be connected in ways you never imagined.
Do you not agree that the mania surrounding celebrity is reaching an unhealthy level?
No, I don't. My clients want to feel more connected to those people that they see in the magazines and on television.
Enjoy. So far, I've had all her diseases. Must have been expensive. Is there any way you could spread it? What happened to Anna Geist?
It's pretty shocking.
understand how this isn't considered cannibalism.
You've become involved in something sinister.
It's a weird business, Sid.
So on the next Culture Cast, we are going to be kicking off Body Horror Month in July. We're going to be talking about Antiviral. That is David Cronenberg's son, Brandon Cronenberg's film. I'm going to be joined by everyone's favorite podcaster, Mr. Mike White, the scholarly podcaster that he is. We're going to talk some body horror. Until then, where can people find you, Jess?
You can find me on Twitter at writer Jess Byard. You can find me on Instagram at the same handle. That's pretty much it. I'm working on some other places you can find me, so that might be a stay tuned. But until then.
And you can find me on Twitter at casualty_Chris. You can find the podcast on the internet at culturecast.com. We're also on all podcatchers, both iOS and Android. Give us a favorable review on iTunes. That would be super helpful. Or on Spreaker. That works too. Big thanks as always to _91 for the intro, outro music for the Culture Cast, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Hello, filthy movie lovers. My name is Gentry Austin.
And I'm Casey Scott.
And we're the hosts of the Sin Syndicate, film podcast for something weirdos, anti-criterion bros, and Joseph Sarno aficionados. Join us semi-weekly as we peer into the adults-only theaters and sticky-floored cinemas of the golden age of sexploitation, when the morals were loose, the laws were murky, and the intercourse was all simulated. Find us now on the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.
If you're looking for more horror outside of the mainstream, look no further than Unsung Horrors, a podcast about underseen horror movies. I'm Lance.
And I'm Erica. Every other week, we'll cover a horror movie with fewer than 1,000 views on Letterboxd. We'll even give you double feature recommendations to pair with the movies we discuss.
From gothic to shot on video, from slashers to comedies, from giallo to J-horror, we'll cover all the subgenres. So join us as we unearth these hidden gems of horror.
Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, all at Unsung Horrors, available wherever you listen to podcasts. And part of the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.